Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I think it's been 4.5 years since the
five.
conversation.
I thought you said 5. Yeah.
What's happened in the last 5 years? Anything interesting?
A pandemic.
That's one. I was thinking of TV shows, but you're right. I think a pandemic is a bigger thing for sure. So if you're joining us, if you've listened to the Commerce Minded podcast in the past, well then, I mean, thanks for staying around for 5 years. I appreciate you. But the change here is, well, one, technology's improved. So this is a video. So I think we're going to be on YouTube. That's kind of cool. We're continue to be on audio. So we're still going to talk about commerce-y kind of things, but sometimes not. But we're just going to talk about business things, B2B business something. It doesn't really matter, I guess. We're just going to talk to people, pick their brains, learn from them, have a little fun. And Elle, you are joining us. Have been at Foster Commerce, a little over a year and a half now.
Yep, a little over a year and a half. Yeah. And I think, what we hope to do with the podcast is talk to people about their successes, their challenges. I mean, that's what I'm interested in.
That's your goal. Your goal for the podcast is to talk to people and promote them and share their successes. Mine is to try to be funny.
Yeah. Yeah, you have your comedian dream.
Are these going to be competing values, or are we going to be able to get along on this?
No, you can be funny and still get business insights, of course.
Okay. Thank you for that. No, I'm excited. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're doing this podcast with me. I'm glad we're going to talk to really smart people and we're going to learn from them about what they've been through, what they've been successful at. You're right. I'll try not to be too funny because it'll be distracting if I'm really good and we won't get to hear their stories. But
there might be some of your optimist bias coming in here. I'm not sure, but
see, that's a deep cut. There you go. All right.
So watch Steven Stoddle 2023 talk.
Freaking A. All right. Elle, you're fired. You can't. Actually, no, because you don't want to be here. So you got to be here. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, no, we just talked to somebody. We talked to Paul Babb, and I think it went really good. How do you think it went?
It was amazing. Paul's amazing. It was such a great conversation, and I'm eager to get this out and share it with people.
Yeah, me too. If you don't know Paul is Paul Babb. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Maxon. He's been at Maxon really for 25 years. He founded MaxonUSA before then it was bought out from the global group, from Nemetschek. A lot of things kind of happened with all that, but he's the founder of MaxonUSA, and he's been with it this whole time. And so through all of that, he's learned a few things. He's a marketer by trade and experience, and even as a founder of a company, he's marketing his perspective and his thing. So he starts sharing some of the secrets about how he's been successful as a marketer, helping MaxonUSA and helping Maxon now be one of the leading 3D software companies in the world. So that's just a real joy to hear him kind of talk about his approach to things. And then it's kind of toward the end of the conversation, he lets out a surprising announcement that is going to lead him into some new ventures into 2024. So that's good. But that's what we're here for. We're here to share Paul with you all today, or from wherever you are. So I hope you enjoy. And if you want to keep watching us, you want to keep listening wherever you are, you know where to go. Wherever you are now, just come back here next time, and we will be here for you. So without further ado, here is Paul Babb.
Well, today we're welcoming Paul Babb, Chief Marketing Officer at Maxon. And we invited Paul to the show today because we wanted to learn more about how he helped grow Maxon from being one of over 35 possible 3D software products for consumers to one of the 5 that dominate the market today. Paul started out as Maxon's US CEO and was instrumental in stewarding its powerful rise in the 3D software landscape as it went through a series of acquisitions and mergers. And in 2000, became a subsidiary of the German-based company Nemetschek. Welcome to the show, Paul. And where are you calling in from today?
Southern California, a little town called Thousand Oaks, just about 45 minutes north of LA.
Yeah. Sunny there, I hope.
It's a beautiful day today. It's actually
I'm
been
jealous.
really nice in that we're getting a little bit of brisk cool. I mean, the last few years, we've seen the effects of climate change. It's been getting hotter, and it seems to stay hotter later in the year. This year, we've been
Yep.
getting some nice swings where we'll have
Oh,
those hot
nice.
days, but we'll have those nice brisk 30-degree mornings, which is really nice.
Fantastic. Yeah, here it's full on winter, but we're also experiencing those climate change impacts. We get a lot of snow and then it melts away, and it's a little bit odd for this time of year. But anyway, I'm happy that the holiday season is upon us.
Me
It's
too.
really nice to be in the winter time.
Absolutely.
I lived in LA for 6 years. I was in Pasadena
Okay.
and then like Silver Lake area.
Okay.
So that was where I met my wife, is in Silver Lake area. But I never went up to Thousand Oaks. I think I drove through it to like go to like mountains and stuff sometimes.
Or Santa Barbara. We're like halfway
Okay,
between Santa Barbara. If you're in LA and you would
there
drive
you
up,
go.
we were like a halfway stop. But I actually worked in Pasadena for a while. I used to take that back freeway and I worked right on the main drag there for many years.
Oh, where'd you work?
Electric Image
No, I don't
it
know.
was another 3D software company back in the what was it, the early 90s. A company called Electric Image, and I worked right there in the Old Town area of Pasadena. Great place
Yeah,
to work. Lots of restaurants and stores, and it's beautiful out there. Bit of a
yeah.
commute
Yeah.
for us, but for me, but it was a great place to work.
So is that where you were before Maxon then?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So I let's see. I started out in advertising, and I bounced around different companies. And I was working at Capitol Records when someone contacted me from
Nice.
in the actual record looking stack of records looking building, 8th floor. Worked in the
Fantastic.
marketing department, and uh, I grew. I was very involved in theater, music, and did a little work in the entertainment industry for years. So the idea of working in the music industry I thought would be really cool. And unfortunately, working in the music industry is not really about the music, and so or about about artists, which is sad because
What is
I
it?
am
What
very
is
much
it
about
about?
artists. What's that?
Yeah.
What is it about?
It's about making money. And I could the number of times that amazing artists or musicians came through there and nothing really happened for them, and not because not only because maybe the market didn't buy it, but just the way they market it. They don't. God, this is a long story off topic, but the sale of a band or the promotion of a band, it really they don't seem to focus on the music part of it or the where the artist is coming from. There were a lot of times where they gave me a nickname. God, I've forgotten it now, but it was something about focus on the art too much. But I would be the guy that when we'd get a new artist, I would turn on the music in my office and I'd play a CD over and over again just to get to know the artist, because the first time you listen to something it's kind of like it doesn't really stick, and then you do it a few more times, and they used to yell at me to close my door because it was annoying them. They're like, you don't want to hear the music. And then when we would sit in meetings and they would talk about how to position an artist, most of the people in the um, in the executive team had never listened to it. And so they'd be making decisions about how to position an artist and what people are going to enjoy it, but they hadn't listened to the music. And so I would sometimes, go, oh, wait a second. The classic story is, you guys aren't going to use this, but classic story was one of the executives said, it was a rapper, and he said, oh, this is for young teens, like 13 to 16 or something along those lines. And in the first song, there's like a dialogue and something going on, and a guy shoots his girlfriend. And I just went,
Oh my
not
gosh.
sure this would be great for young teens, if, because the first song, a guy kills his girlfriend, and they went, he does.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, see,
So, or
this focus
shoots her
on the
anyway.
artist, though, it's interesting because
That's,
this focus on the artist
by the way,
is,
that's what this is going to transition to for Maxon. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yes, yeah, that's part of the
Absolutely.
brilliance.
So to end
Okay,
that
well,
story, I
before,
was at Capitol.
yeah,
Someone I knew that in the ad industry, said, they were looking. Electric Image was looking for a marketing person, and then an artist that I had worked with at an agency recommended me, and I went and got the job. And that was my first foray into the 3D visual effects, graphics industry, basically. So I worked with them for quite a few years. They got purchased. I went back to freelance work, and Maxon came as a freelance client originally, and then transitioned into when I was in Germany working on a trade show with them, they asked me if I'd be interested in starting a subsidiary in the US because they really didn't have anybody representing them. They'd only sold a few dozen copies of the Cinema 4D. So 1998, I started a company with Maxon Germany. Yeah.
Wow, that is fantastic. I feel like we just launched right into the heart of a lot of what we wanted to talk to you about. But I think,
sure.
Stephen, did you have a game that you wanted to play before we kind of got into other things, or what do you?
I do. Yeah.
What is it?
The game is called. I gotta find it here. What did I call this? Oh, it's called "Who's That Paul?"
Oh my. Okay.
Who's that Paul?
You better change the name for the next person.
I think. Well, maybe I'll keep it the same. Maybe the same questions to see if the person listened, because the answers will already be there in the previous episode. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure they'll be good for guest
seems very complicated. Okay, but wait. What are the rules of this game?
Okay, I'm glad you're asking, Al. The rules of this game are really complicated. Basically, Paul, you have to guess with all the clues that I give you, who's that Paul? So
okay.
I'm going to give you some clues, and we're going to see how many clues it takes you in order to name.
I love this. Who's
that Paul?
Okay, and who are they playing for? Or is Paul playing for someone else?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Paul, you're playing on behalf of somebody. You're playing. So the winner, if you get this right, you are playing on on the next person behind me at Starbucks is who you're playing for. Because whenever I go to Starbucks, if you get all this right, I will buy their drink.
Oh, I love this. Okay.
I don't know who they are. They don't know who they are. They have no idea where they're going to get a free drink.
I still want to get them a free Starbucks. I love it.
Yeah. That's why I want you to get them a free drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
When he was a baby, he was so big, it took 5 storks to carry him to his home.
Paul Bunyan.
Oh my goodness. You got it so fast, quickly. I didn't know how easy to make this or not. We nailed it. Do you want to hear my other clues though?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the first time he clapped as a baby, he broke every window in the house.
Nice. Are these true from the legend?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Do you know what the Trees of Mystery attraction is in Klamath, California?
I do not. I've been through Klamath too. No.
Okay. Well, at that Trees of Mystery attraction, there's a 49-foot tall statue of him.
Wow.
Oh, I am aware of that. That's right. No. I have seen that. Yeah. That's really cool. I did not know that's what the area was called.
The Trees of I didn't know either. But all right, I'll do one more. This is one I really like the most, actually. Legend has it that the 10,000 lakes of Minnesota were formed when he and Blue Ox, right, his ox, got lost in a snowstorm. It's pretty fun.
That is pretty fun. Now I realize why I didn't know that, because I went through Klamath in Oregon. I went through the mouth of the Klamath. I went fishing at the mouth of the Klamath. And so I don't think I've ever been to the Klamath in one.
I should have started with that question.
Yeah, it would have thrown me off.
With that clue.
Completely. Yeah.
Kind of gave it away. All right. Well, thanks for playing. The person behind me, next time I go to Starbucks.
It's just one question? It's just one, Paul?
Oh, I got another one. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know how much to prep for this.
I thought it would have to be more than one Paul.
Well,
but go ahead.
Okay, I'll up my game next time. Okay. No, I don't have another one. I don't have another clue.
We actually did. I think you actually did have several other Pauls, but then you were like, "Oh, we should just do one Paul." But next time we'll do more Pauls.
Yeah.
Make it harder.
I do have this. It was basically an open-ended. I was going to time you for like 30 seconds and see how many Pauls you can name.
That's a pretty good one too. I'll give you one. He started his musical career in a skiffle band.
Come on,
Paul McCartney.
Yep.
Oh,
good. She caught it.
Good job, Elle. What did Elle win?
Yeah. I'll buy coffee for the next person behind me in Starbucks.
Look at this. The generosity is exploding.
It's the holiday season.
That's awesome.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
really go to Starbucks very often, so I'll have to report whenever it happens.
Me too.
But,
Me too.
But when I go, when I order at Starbucks, do y'all like Starbucks? I don't want to.
I love Starbucks.
Okay, I order two things there only. My order that I get is actually really expensive for how small it is. I get a triple short latte with 2 sugars.
Whoa. Triple shot?
Yeah.
Short. Whoa.
Short. Because I don't like milk. My opinion of most coffee
dense.
shops is dense.
You should. Why don't you try some soy or something else other than milk?
Yeah, I've tried it. I've done oat milk. I've done soy.
Yeah.
I just my view of going to coffee shops is typically like it's a milk shop with some coffee.
Right.
And how
It's true. Most of the drinks are are flavored with coffee, but they're not totally coffee. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in America. Yeah.
Yes, in America.
It wouldn't be that. It's not like that in Italy.
No.
Well, the Starbucks are. The drink is pretty consistent worldwide. When you go to a Starbucks anywhere in the world, the drinks are really consistent.
Yeah. I guess I was talking about that, little coffee shop.
Oh, yeah, no, a regular old coffee shop.
Italian village.
No.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, they don't call a latte. Well, they do have lattes in some of the places, but usually it's a milk cafe. So it actually, the emphasis is on the, like in Germany, it's a Milch cafe. So the emphasis is just on the milk. Because they got German? It right. No, what's German? Interesting? I went, when I first started, Rick, my VP at the time, and we made an effort to learn German. And so I can tell a taxi driver where to go. I can order food. I can ask where the bathroom is. I mean, just the basics and things like that. But we really thought, we should dive into this and learn a little German. Well, most people, have some exposure to English over there. Their kids get English classes from like first grade. And so it became defeating when I thought, you try to practice with them and they'll speak back to you in English. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to go to one of the executives' houses. I got invited over to his house for dinner. I thought, great, I'll speak German with his kids. And I walked in and they said, this is Paul. And I was like, good talk. Good, nice to meet you. And he goes, oh, great. Hey, how are you doing? And it's pure English, as kids, because they literally get exposure to English at around first grade. So they're all speaking English pretty early. The only place it really comes in handy is if you take off and go into some of the smaller towns. My wife and I, have done side trips when we've been there a few times. And like when you go to the Black Forest or you're going to some of these little small German towns, they tend not to speak English first.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, take us back to that moment. So you hinted at it before. You were working as a freelancer for Maxon, and you were at a trade show in Germany. And is that
when they asked me to do that? Yeah, we had started working together. The first time I actually met them, I had helped them put together a trade show booth for Macworld in San Francisco, and I guess part of the reason they asked me was while they were there, I thought, well, we're going to maximize the time. The first thing I thought was, they just asked me to do a booth, but then I put together some demo material with the software, learned how to play around with the software, learned how to demo it. That surprised them because they thought I was just going to set up a booth for them. But I learned how to, use the product well enough to demo it. So I demoed it for them at the booth. And then while they were there, I had relationships with some of the studios up there from when I worked at Electric Image. So ILM and even the ranch, Skywalker Ranch, I knew artists up there. And so while they were there, I said, hey, would you like to visit some studios, show off the product, get some feedback on the product and things like that. And so we did that. And then they invited me to a very large trade show in Germany to do English demos. So I went over there. And then while I was there, they were that was when they, I think it was one of the programmers who said, hey, would you ever think about, opening a Maxon office there? And I think at the time they had this one guy in Montana, speaking of Montana, who had, offered to sell it for them and put up a shop, but he hadn't sold many copies. I think maybe 20 or something like that. And so said, sure. But I kept my freelance clients for about a year. because who knew? But yeah, we went from basically 0% of their market to 50% of their market pretty quickly.
Oh my
But there were,
gosh.
you were not wrong. There were many 3D packages on the market back then. And I remember one of the first trade shows I did, I approached a reseller that I knew from the industry, and we were collecting a lot of leads, and we had done some fun things to get attention, and we were getting a lot of attention. And there were only maybe 2 or 3 of us working for Maxon at the time. We were getting a ton of leads, and I thought, "Ooh, I'm going to need some help." I mean, you want to get to them as quickly as possible while they're hot. And so I approached one of our resellers who was at the show and said, "Hey, you want to work these leads for me?" And his exact words were, "This market's so saturated, you guys won't last a year." And blew me off on the leads. Yeah. So I love to give him, I still know him. I still love to give him crap about that one. But yeah, he kind of blew us off. And so, yeah, it was an interesting time. It was a really interesting time. I had done, some entrepreneurial work. Maxon was the one that really took off, obviously, but there's, I'd had some experience with some other things that we tried to do with different people. And, I think we originally tried to start a distribution company, but that didn't work out. And then it was much easier to be Maxon anyway in the long run. So
Even for you to take that, was that like a divergent like path for you of like the type of role it was, or was your understanding of like where you were in your previous jobs and the freelancing and stuff you were doing? Like it feels like so far what I know you, that was a very different role of representing or like, trying to sell Maxon, the product.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
stuff.
my job had purely been marketing previously. So marketing at Capital, marketing at Electric Image, and then freelancing, it was typically marketing. There were a lot of things that I learned business wise. Now I had a short stint with a telecommunications company for a while. Ran a small telecommunications company back in the day when they would FCC would it was more of a lottery. They lotteried off uh, frequencies. So if you know how cell phones work, in order for there to be service, you need a tower basically a tower can serve about 50 miles. And so the FCC back in the day, they would lottery those off. So what you had to do was put together a report and submit your report for how the tower would work and all the different geological or surveys and things like that. So it's mountainous, so we would want to place the tower here. This is how it serves it. So it was very technical. And then anybody and everybody who had submitted to these things, they would basically pick a name out of a hat, and you would win that signal. And then you had 9 months to get a tower up and running. So I worked for a telecommunications investment company where they would help people submit their paperwork to be in the lottery. And part of the deal was if they won, then we would get that contract, and then we would find, I can't remember how many it was. Maybe it was 90 investors, something like that. We would get the investors in, and we had a company that would put the towers up. And so that the person who got the license would have a certain percentage of it. The company would have a certain percentage, and they'd sell some investments to get the tower up. And, at the time it felt very scammy, but these people all made their money back and more. Obviously, I think that some of the frequencies we sold went into the UPS when UPS bought a whole national series of frequencies for themselves. I think a lot of the towers that we had put up were thrown into that. But anyway, long story short, I learned a lot about business operations with that. But then I left that, and that was right before Capitol Records. Went back into only marketing, and then so when started Maxon, yes, there was a lot of finance and administrative things that I learned going along the way. But I've always seen marketing as people always say, I hate doing sales. You hear a lot of people, I don't want to be a sale, but we're selling on a daily basis, and the best marketing closes the sale, right? Is, if I sell the product well enough and somebody goes online and buys it, you've basically marketed and sold it. So I always approached it as a, marketing sales type of thing. Although I never felt like I had to sell the product. I always felt like we just marketed it and showed it what the value was. And if they purchased it, they purchased it. And if you can provide a valid reason or, good proposition for why the product would help someone in production, they're going to buy it. So the sales come naturally that way. So yeah, now that you say it, it was probably a leap in a different direction to a certain point. Especially when they sold a portion of the company to Nemetschek, the publicly traded company. There was a big learning curve on that one. The monthly financial reporting for a company that is publicly traded is much more stringent. And, and here we were, a company of like 10, 15 people, and we're having to manage our finances like a publicly traded company. And so that was a big learning curve. But yeah, learned a lot the last 25 years for sure.
So did you demo it primarily to the creators and studios at that time, or how did you find out, like, how did you decide who to demo to and prioritize that?
Well, we started with those, the right kind of trade shows, the Macworlds, the SIGGRAPHs, these are shows where artists are coming looking for new tools anyway. And this was kind of at the time where every SIGGRAPH was it exciting, and you could say, oh, this is the SIGGRAPH where, nonlinear editing became a big deal, or, this last couple of years, it's all about all AI, right? So AI is the buzzword. And previous to that, it was metaverse. So every couple of years, there becomes that buzzword that, people are going to trade shows and to see the new technology. And so 3D was relatively, bringing it to a wider audience was a bigger deal. So it was started out by going that direction. And also some of those relationships I talked about with, going to a studio. I mean, in all honesty, the early version of cinema that I saw was extremely robust and extremely stable, and which was very rare for 3D. 3D packages tend to be a little crashy, and cinema was extremely stable and extremely robust. It was fast, and you could do things in it very quickly, but it wasn't up to the level of a lot of the other packages in terms of the features that were there yet. So there was a lot of features needed. And I thought by bringing them to the studios, it would impress the studios. The performance of the product would impress them, and then they could get some feedback on, how to bring some of those features into it to make it, more competitive in the industry. And so a lot of it was relationships with people in studios and people that I knew then. And then it evolved. It evolved. A lot of the features that got created made our product, because it was fast and easy in terms of, relative to other 3D packages. We saw opportunities where people who were using After Effects is a 2D motion graphics tool. And we had functionality that enabled you to bring the 3D elements into After Effects. And then After Effects is and was very big in the broadcast market. And that we evolved a lot into that, where we started to focus a lot more on showing 2D artists how to incorporate 3D into their workflow. And that was a huge boost for us for many years. And that motion graphics became a very big portion of our market because fast, stable, and then easy to use relatively. I have to say relatively because 3D can be very complex, but the types of things that motion graphics artists do for TV, we could show and make it very easy. And so that was kind of how it evolved and how we started positioning it in the market. The other thing too was when I was at Electric Image, there was a perception among the industry, the artists who were working in 3D in the industry, is that if you can't figure it out, then you shouldn't be using it. It was kind of an attitude. And when I was at Electric Image, I tried to encourage artists to share tips and techniques with other artists, because I thought, well, if you could soften that learning curve by having professionals share, their tips and techniques. And back then they wouldn't. They would go, no, I figured it out. It took me years to figure that out. I'm not sharing that. They felt very like they owned it, right? And
Sure.
So when I started Maxon, that was one of the first things I started to focus on. What I did was I hired young guys to do tech support. And then one of the goals I would say to them is, hey, do me a favor, start keeping track of the things you hear the most often, the most frequently asked questions that are coming to you. Make a tutorial, and then we'll put it up online. And then next time you get that call, you just go look. Because we had, like I said, it was me, and then it was me and one person, and then it was me, two people. So it grew, it was a very small team. So to be efficient, we started creating educational material just to make it, go, oh yeah, okay, here, let me send you the link. Go watch this tutorial. That'll solve your problem. Gets them off the phone faster. They can serve the next person. And there wasn't the YouTubes and the Vimeos of the world. People were not sharing stuff the way they do now. And we still had that attitude that I put all this time into it. I'm not sharing my techniques. But then what we did was we found the people who were willing to do it, or I'd have my guys figure it out and do tutorials for these types of things. And so then this is kind of where Stephen comes in later on. And Foster is the first Cineversity, was one of the first of its kind for offering tutorials for our products. I think lynda.com was the real first one to come out with to do that. LYNDA, lynda.com, who then got bought by LinkedIn. They got bought by Microsoft. So I think it's LinkedIn Learning now. But back in the day, there was lynda.com, but that was all focused on things like Excel and using Word. It was more business applications. And there wasn't a lot of tutorials for people learning what we're doing. It grew very quickly after that because other third-party people started doing it for Adobe products and things like that. I
didn't realize the link between that and the Cineversity. That's what
it really was, to provide that source for people to be successful with the product, but also kind of soften that learning curve. And one of the greatest things that came out of that first version of Cineversity is there was I'm not going to name the company, it'll make them look stupid, but there was a company that was very successful that had raised a lot of money at different times and had acquired a lot of different companies like Maxon. And then they actually had they had, I think, 3 3D packages. They had acquired smaller companies, and then they had taken those teams, and their plan was to build the next ultimate 3D package. And they weren't far from us. And one day I got a call from their head of tech support, and we all knew each other in the industry. The industry is very small, and we all kind of knew each other. But the head of tech support said to me, I got to tell you, I can't thank you enough for putting up that Cineversity, because we had done a whole series of what is 3D and how, even just the concepts of 3D. And then we did the whole, what are the concepts of animation, all the 12 steps for animation, things like that. So there was basic stuff in there as well. And he said, I can't thank you enough for putting that up. I send all my customers there. And we were, at the time, they had purchased these other 3D packages, and people were losing confidence in those packages because they had announced we're now those teams are going to combine forces to make the next generation 3D package. And so we were seeing a lot of people converting over from those packages to cinema, and we go like, that's really strange. Why are we getting so many sales from that company? And he was basically saying, yeah, I send all my customers over to watch your tutorials. It's really helpful.
Wow.
I don't think he realized that he was back, he's basically helping us sell the product to a certain point. But that was, that was our,
like a tactic of like how to learn that lesson, right? Of like,
yeah,
right, it's like, honestly, so in our world, right, the things that we do at Foster Commerce, right, is we primarily build in like Craft CMS, so it's this hosted content management system type thing. And they market towards developers, but they don't market towards companies like Maxon and other companies, and the end clients who are actually going to be using this software at the end. And it makes me wonder if like having the tutorials that are better than what Craft puts out for themselves, like being the place for like Craft websites, Craft commerce websites, be like, so that if they're on calls with people that are asking about the product, they're like, well, go check out Foster Commerce's thing. And like, now I want to do that. Like, where it's like, our documentation and our information is so much better than what they've put together and the time that they have to put things together that they're like, so.
There's a lot of things that happen with that too. We actually had one of the sister companies of Nemetschek makes an architectural product that was, being sold a lot in Mac because, obviously AutoCAD is kind of the leader in that architectural market, but it was a smaller product. It was Mac based. They had a distributor in Canada that did the same thing we did, but for their product and kind of on their own. And I think they, had a subscription to it, or they charged for it, or maybe they just made it available and it just helped them sell the product. But eventually that sister company went, well, this is silly. And they bought them. We just bought that company because they were creating such amazing educational material, and it became de facto the thing that everybody wanted to have. That kind of
Yeah.
happened to us to a certain point. We did it in the US, and of course we were, anybody in the world could see something on the web. And when Maxon Germany added an annual maintenance agreement, they had an annual maintenance agreement. We added it for free to our US customers. We had been charging a small fee, like, I don't know, $99 a year or something like that for Cineversity. And we decided just to roll it into, so any of our customers who were buying the annual maintenance would get Cineversity for free. But that was just our
Nice.
customers. And we had North and South America. North and South America was my territory that they had given me. Well, they started coming to me and going, people are really mad that they're not getting Cineversity in Germany and other places in the world. And I was like, well, let's work we had to work something out, because they were saying, no, you have to give it to us. I'm like, I can't just give it to you for free. We have to, there should be some compensation so that we can, if we're going to create some more tutorials and maybe even do tutorials in German and Spanish and other things like that, we wouldn't do that if we don't need to.
Yeah.
So we actually made out some sort of a business deal so that, ultimately they had to start contributing to Cineversity so that they could then offer it to their customers as well. So when you put out good content or you're creating great services, eventually, you're right. You could become that place, and they, maybe they would do that. It'd probably be smart of them, to then send people over to there. And then, even better, I don't know if you do this, but, a short workshop, put some content together for a short workshop for people to learn it and start selling the workshop. We've got a lot of schools that do that now, and are, not just with our product, but other products. And they're very successful. School of Motion is a good one. There's Grayscale Gorilla's got a lot of great content out there. There's a bunch of them out there that basically, have started whole industries with just teaching people how to use the products. Now we did it. We had to do it out of necessity, because we were a small company and nobody was, the other schools were looking at doing it for, some of the other products in the industry that were, much bigger at the time. So we did it for ourselves because nobody was doing it. So that was the solution.
Yeah. So was that the turning point when you say you got to 50%? So like going back to your story of like how it became successful for you, what that 50%, like, is that happening before Cineversity? Did you see a jump? Like, what would you contribute to like some of those growth moments or like certain milestones when you look back over that time period of like, these were the key moments and decisions you're like, that was a good decision?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been, it would have to be after Cineversity, definitely. And that, it's funny because they talk about, the success of Maxon being that that it was about building community. I don't think we ever used that word when we were doing it, building community. It was more about helping people be successful with the product. It was, providing the tools for new customers to get into the product faster. Because for me, I worked in ad agencies and I did some art direction work as well. And you would download a piece of software, and it's hard to learn a new piece of software. You really have to knuckle yourself down and really spend a lot of time. And so anything you can do to make it easier for somebody to adopt your product, we thought, okay, that's going to be valuable. And then it doesn't stop there. Now, how do you help these people be successful? And if they're successful, they're going to keep renewing their annual maintenance. And now today they're going to keep renewing their subscription as long as the product is still providing value to them. And then combine that with the other thing we did was we suddenly realized, we knew when you walk around a trade show and you're watching employees do demos of products, it's like they're showing tools. And in the industry, nobody gets in this industry because they want to use a tool. They get in this industry because they love Star Wars or Marvel or Star Trek, and they saw something in a film and they went, oh, that's so cool, I want to create that. So we realized that the best way to promote the product was to bring the artists out and have them show off the cool work that they're doing with this stuff, because the imagery, artists are attracted to imagery. They want to create this. So a person who wants to create that wants to, see that. And then we would encourage those artists to maybe share a couple of tips and techniques when they were showing off their work. And then that moved into, we had so many great stories to tell. We said, we need to, another way of helping our customers be more successful is to promote them. So let's start. I actually, one of the things I did that was kind of a turning point as well was I started having my PR team focus on doing stories. I would say to studios that we were working with, I said, let us be your PR team. We'll do the stories for you. And we weren't getting a lot of pickup on news outlets and things like that. So I started using a lot of freelance writers. And as all these news sites were popping up on websites, they were hungry for content. But if I called them, they wouldn't want the content because they would thinking I was making it advertorial, that I was trying to sell our product. Well, what I did was I had my team hire freelance writers. We would feed them stories from our customers, and we would say, make this all about the customer. Mention cinema, mention at some point that they use cinema. And if they did something really cool technologically or something that's unusual with cinema, go ahead and write about that. But stay away from it being advertorial. Make it all about the artist and the work and whatever they were doing. And so we started focusing a ton on that. And I actually, the person who I worked with at Electric Image was head of PR at Electric Image, left when they got bought. She left and started her own PR firm. And I remember her walking up to me because she had been doing some work with some of our competitors. And she said to me, man, how do you get so much coverage? And I was like, and it wasn't, she saw it as coverage, but we were just doing stories about people who were using our tool and staying away from it being advertorial. And what was great was sometimes those freelancers were getting paid. They would pitch a story to the outlet. Outlets were notoriously cheap. They'd pay like $300 or $500 a story. We would pay them on top to do the story, basically pay them the time to do the interview and do all the work so they could double dip a little bit. They get a little money from us, they'd get paid by the outlet, and we would get all the benefit, basically our customers would get the benefit because they'd get the exposure, and our product would get mentioned all the time when they were using it. So that was so all these things kind of started combining into what people call building community. And I'm not sure when we started calling it that, but in the beginning, it wasn't in my mind like I thought, oh, I'm building community. No, in my mind, I was facilitating our customers to be successful, because if they're successful, they're going to keep buying our software and they'll be successful, or will be successful based on their success. So that's kind of how it evolved. Yeah. Nowadays, now I'm going to get on my soapbox.
Let's do it.
You probably hear a lot of people talking about data. Everybody talks about data, analyzing data. And there's so much data now. And then now you've got AI. You can use AI to analyze your data. Data. And finance people and engineers and administrators and people who are, are the stewards of stock traded companies love data. And they think data is the be all end all. And what they don't understand, and especially in our industry, we sell to creatives. We sell to creative people, artists, that type of thing. And regardless of, and don't get me wrong, I see there being tremendous value in data. I think that there's too much emphasis on it. And I think people keep forgetting that ultimately you are doing business with a person. A human being has to make the decision. And in the creative world, there's a little touch of an emotional, people are emotionally attached to their tool. And at some point, a human being has to decide to do business with you and decide that your tool is going to be the tool that they're going to spend the majority of their day with. And there's an emotional part of that. And I think that they forget that that's a huge component to this, that there is a huge human factor. The data can give you great information. The data can validate decisions you're making. But the long-term success of your company is about the relationships you create with people, the mutually beneficial relationship that you create with another company. And I mean, Steve and I have been working, and Foster have been working together for a very long time. Yeah. And I could go out and hire a web company, but you guys do the same thing to a certain point, because we've had conversations about what we wanted the website to be and what we wanted it to do for our customers. And you guys didn't just build what we asked you to build. We would have creative conversations about how the best way to do that and how it could be more efficient for us. So you were working on making us successful,
Mhm.
And in producing the kind of content and the things and that we and the assets and things that we wanted to provide to our customers. And that, I mean, God, how many years have we been working together? It is about those long-term beneficial relationships. And I think people are losing sight of that. I've got a bunch of friends. I have a friend who works for Amazon. I got friends who work for other companies, and they all lament the same thing. Oh my God, all we're doing is looking at data, data, data. And I've been in meetings where people look at data and they make decisions. They're still making a decision based on their own personal view of what that data is telling them. And I'll even think to myself, wow, you see this in that data. I see that in this data, which just goes to show you data is a very cold, it's throwing numbers at you, but you can interpret those numbers in a multitude of ways. But when you sit down with a customer or you're at a trade show and you spend time with people, there's no misinterpreting that. There's no, you can, and you've got the chance to clarify some of that. So, that's my soapbox for these days is that I think data is short-term black and white thinking. I think focusing only on that, it really is short-term black and white thinking. And the world is not black and white. And especially in the creative world, it's very gray. And I think that kind of thinking doesn't lead to long-term successful relationships. I think it leads to, oh, great, I'm going to make my numbers this year. But then I think in the long run, people are going to start to feel the pain. Now, I think companies like Amazon actually get it to a certain point. There are some that get it because I've actually had.
It just came out. Did you hear the Jeff Bezos kind of interview with Lex Friedman?
No.
Oh my goodness. I just saw clips of it and I was on LinkedIn and I was on scrolling around and there's little clips of videos and they talk about that at one point. There's a little snippet that I saw where essentially, I don't remember what the question is and you should go watch it. I guess it's like 2 hours and all the clips I've seen have been pretty awesome. And it's one of those, I feel weird. I'm like, Jeff Bezos is a guy I kind of like to hate, but I like everything he says. So I don't know what to do with it. I'm mixed.
He does get it. I mean, I actually recently had an experience where something didn't go right. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to be a number. It's not going to happen. And it wasn't. They connected me with a customer service person who had a name who solved it. Yeah. And I think that's so smart of him, to go beyond the numbers and the AI and the data. Because, they're suggesting, the AI is suggesting things to you because you happen to look at a, can of worms or something, and suddenly you've got nothing but cans of worms in your feeds, and which is brilliant. If it's used properly, I think it's absolutely brilliant. But you can't forget the human factor.
Well, what he says is he says like, so it's that point. He cares about customer satisfaction. And he's like, we have all this data around customer satisfaction, but he called it like proxies, like proxy data or something, whatever phrase he used. But he's basically, you have all this data that's essentially a proxy to try to tell you if there's customer satisfaction, because you can't really measure customer satisfaction. It's more qualitative than it is quantitative, right. But we put quantitative things in order to tell us it's a proxy for that information. And he's basically saying like the thing you have to figure out is you have to constantly reevaluate these proxies because they change. Like the essentially in my own words, and like the barometer that it's telling you like changes, and you have to keep changing your tooling, your data, which it is to be able to get the thing that you really care about, which is what you're saying is customer satisfaction, customer that. So like what tools, what how does the data play? So I liked kind of that answer for him, and it's kind of like you, just like it's not about the data. I mean, you can have proxy data that then you have to keep reevaluating. But ultimately what you care about is like, is it telling you about customer satisfaction? Is it getting there? So like, I don't know. So even for you, Paul at Maxon, like you've named a couple things that you did that were successful. Like you supported artists, you got them some recognition, even if it's just in a single article, right? And you got the word out about them. You started you made their lives easier. You served them also in the way of creating content, videos of how to get started, how to become successful. You did all that stuff. What were like the next challenges? Is this when then Maxon gets acquired by Nemetschek and then there are new challenges because you start getting global, you start having other marketing needs? Are there other things that come in, and does that stuff lose its focus, or did you have to keep adding to that, or is that sufficient to carry you into enterprise level? Like, how do you get to does it change?
It's interesting. There's so many factors in that. Now, Nemetschek bought 70% of Maxon back in 2001 or 2002.
Okay.
Now, at that point, the 30% was owned by the three original owners, and the contracts were written in such a way that they still had control of the company. So we still were somewhat separated, except financially. We were somewhat separated in terms of how we could approach the market. So that stayed until 2018. Now, enterprise. What's interesting is a lot of our competitors would approach the market top down. So they would contact the buyer, the requisition guy at NBC to try to sell their software, and then the supervisor would be trying to sell the software. What we did is we came bottom up. We showed artists the value of using our tool, and I have multiple stories about this, but the one that's off the top of my head without mentioning the studio was we walked into a studio that had one copy of Cinema and like 20 copies of our competitor's product. Now, I didn't go in there and go, hey, you guys, throw away that other package that you've put your heart and soul into and use ours instead. What we did was we showed that artist, we helped that artist raise his game a little bit with our product. And some of the artists had noticed that he was able to do certain things faster than others that they were able to do. So we spent a little time showing, oh yeah, well that's great. You use that. That's a great tool. It's got some good things about it. Here's what we do well. And 2 or 3 years later, that was a studio that had 20 copies of Cinema and one copy of the competitor. And it wasn't, we never went in with the attitude of, you're using the wrong tool, you should use ours, because basically what you're doing, you're not insulting the tool, you're insulting that artist who made a decision 5 or 8 years ago to learn how to use that 3D package, has put their heart and soul into learning it, and then you're turning around and going, you're an idiot, you should use ours. That's what our competitors would do. They would literally come in and say, we'll give you the first year for free, and we'll give you some training if you throw away Cinema 4D. And people that I knew and the artists would come in and go, can you believe they did that? How stupid is that? You're basically telling me I'm an idiot for using this product. So it was just, the very competitive type of thing. So that top down, so enterprise. And that was kind of the way we just kept going at it from the artist point of view. And we ended up in all the big studios. Now, once you get to a certain size, the problem with enterprise for Maxon at some point was we were very separate and siloed. My territory was North and South America. And this was a little bit, this was driven by the three guys who started the company because they were fairly small. They would hand Italy to an Italian distributor. They would hand Spain to a Spanish distributor, and they would depend upon them to represent them in that area. But then all those little siloed groups, I couldn't sell to, say, Sony Global because I was only allowed to sell into North and South America. So there was no ability for us to approach the market at that point. Once we've gotten that, we had gotten to a place where I can't remember, maybe it's probably Disney, Disney owns ESPN, Disney owns ABC. We had gotten to a point where we had hundreds of licenses and all these different entities that were Disney, but we weren't selling to a Disney global person purchasing. In 2018, the three guys retired, and Nemechek purchased up the last 30%. So they had 100% ownership of Maxon. And that was when we shifted to the global entity, which then it did enable us to have, be able to go in at a company on an enterprise level and say, now that we're all one big happy international company, we can actually sell to Disney and all the different entities that are buying Disney licenses and things like that. Prior to that, you talked about the exposure of artists. One of the things that we did that was very different was, and this was a site you helped me build too, was C4D Live. Mm-hmm. We started, I recognized that maybe 5% of your market you might see if you're attending trade shows. Most people don't go to trade shows. And I don't know what the exact number is, but that was the number I pulled out of my head based on, my experiences, that we were basically seeing 5% of the market at a trade show. And so we realized one of the things to do was when you're presenting those artists was to bring that content to people who don't or can't get to a trade show. So we started streaming our live presentations from the trade show booth out to the world so they could watch those presentations. And that was another site that, like I said, you guys built with us, C4D Live. And that did two things. It brought the content to a much wider audience, And very quickly, we went from, I think, when it started becoming, this is way before the pandemic, when we had to broadcast, stream our presentations. Our audience went from, like we were getting about 95% of our audience online. And I was explaining that to some of the executives. They were like, that's great. And we'd have to say to an artist too, hey, there might be 10 people sitting here watching your demo, but we've got like 300 watching you online. So sometimes that would be a thing. But we were getting about 20 to 25,000 people watching during the course of a 3 or 4 day trade show. And as you know, we started being able to advertise. We started being able to sell advertising during that. So when in between each artist, we could run 30-second commercials for our partners like Dell and HP and people like that. So we were able to do that. And that was huge because that led to both the exposure going wider for us, but the artists would then get bombarded with jobs. So people would try to hire them or want them to come help them with projects and things like that. And that's one of those really gratifying things. I've had multiple people tell me, I was freelancing 10 years ago. Now I've got my own studio with 10 people because I went out and presented a bunch of times and ended up getting so much work I had to hire people and now run my own company. And that's, we facilitated that. That's really very satisfying. And what crazy validation of the goal we talked about. If you're successful, you're going to keep renewing. Well, now you're successful and you're renewing 10 licenses, not one. And so that's hugely satisfying. Then, once that consolidation happened in 2018, there was a lot of things that happened with Maxon that it needed to do. We needed to have a subscription offering. The market had changed and, 90% of the market didn't want to buy a perpetual license anymore, despite the noise that perpetual license lovers say. It was the numbers pretty much show it. Once you offer a subscription version, the number of perpetual license that gets purchased just drops to nothing.
Yeah.
That's one of those things. I've had so many conversations with the people who are like, oh, I hate you guys, you went to subscription and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, we had to, and 95% of the market is there. And there was that, and obviously, like I said, be able to globally sell the product and reach those enterprise customers and things like that. You lose some of that touch and feel with people as you grow. That's kind of a natural occurrence. That's something I've battled. I battle on that on a regular basis. Like I said, we have to stay focused on what's going to attract new creatives, because the people that we're selling to, yes, we have those enterprise customers, but the people entering the industry are not coming to you from Disney. They're coming from a school. They're coming from, freelance work. They're coming those. And so you still ultimately need to be selling and presenting to artists.
Yeah, because then you run the risk of like being replaced again, but somebody who's attracting the younger people and they're learning new tools that are coming up. And so then you've got to keep
who has, who actually, still having that touchstone that, there's a human being you can, that's part of what I think is one of the negative things that happens with data is when you start looking at the world in terms of data, you're not looking at individuals anymore. And, part of our attraction, people liking MaxonUSA was that they would see us online. They knew me, they knew Rick, they knew Matthias, they knew the people that that we were out there. So it wasn't just Maxon, it was us. And when
they even wanted you to run for president, right? Wasn't that a thing?
They did. 2020. Yeah, 2020. It was actually a little tongue-in-cheek joke. Yeah, they made up a T-shirt that was because Bernie, it was "Feel the Burn." They did "Feel the Babb," and yeah, very flattering. And then they came to me and said, "Hey, we got a lot of people who would like to have copies of that shirt," and asked if they could put it online. I said, "Yeah, as long as the profits go towards something." And so I think we did Doctors Without Borders or something like that. And then they told me they sold like 300 shirts. I was like, really? That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things too, is that, when you start, when you start thinking in terms of data and numbers, you cannot lose that personal connection. And as companies get big, a lot of times they, there's a less emphasis on the individuals who are making those things happen and the passion of those things. And that's the natural occurrence. But I think that's the thing you have to fight, is don't lose the personality of the company in the process as you do those things. And, It happens though. I mean, I remember certain people in Adobe, before, Adobe became $1 billion company, 30 years ago, there was a lot more connection to certain people within the company that probably either aren't there or don't have that kind of influence anymore.
So you think it's worth it then to invest in roles at a company to have more external touch points of like trying to help people with the stuff. And so instead of focusing
I would
so
totally
much
agree with
internally.
that. Yeah. And it's funny. I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, obviously I could run MaxonUSA the way I wanted to back in the years past, but now I'm the marketing person now, so I don't have that. But yeah, now that you make me think about it, as the company grows, it might be interesting to, think about how you could maintain that touchstone with people. You maybe either industry focused, this is your motion graphics guy or gal, or regionally, you got somebody in the Northeast who, that's my person that I reach out to when I'm needing, trying to find an additional freelancer or need some training or, those types of things. That's an interesting thought.
Well, obviously, it makes me think. Obviously I'm running a business, so super small, back, I think right now we're 11 and stuff. So like, I'm thinking about how did the lessons that you had, and obviously you have a different product and we're a service agency versus a product agency or a product company, and just kind of the differences there. But the similarities still feel the same, or there's some similarities,
very much so,
right? That you still help people. But the other thing I guess I'm thinking about is like, present, like staying top of mind, right? When you're out there and you're writing the articles, it solves the problem of being top of mind. If you're it's like that question you got of like, how are you getting so much coverage, right? And so all that coverage, and from your perspective, there was like this really helpful kind of service mentality of it. I want to help the artist use our product to be successful. I want to help them to do all these things, and it paid off for Maxon in a strategy. But also the other strategy of that is then you're just the volume of how much you're seen, like you're top of mind more often. Becomes.
Well, you're casting a wider net as opposed to, I think a lot of companies focus a little too much on my website and my SEO. I want people when they search for them to find me. I've never attributed. I think the wider the net you cast is the better you can do. You're going to reach people. Yeah, sure. If I type in the right keyword, it might pull somebody over. But we're $1,000 a month or $1,100 a year subscription service. It's not like buying a impulse buy at the cash register. Oh, that gum looks good. You don't buy. It's one of those things where you've got to put the time and energy into checking out the tool and discovering if it's going to be what you want. And so, yes, people might find you by that special keyword, but I don't think that's the best way of finding people. I think the best way of finding people is capturing them. I know for me, if I see someone I respect using something, then I'm going to check it out. As an artist, I'm not going, make me an artist. What do I need to be an artist? And then finding that website and buying that software because they came up first on SEO. For me, it's wow, that guy's work is amazing. What does he use? And so you by having those articles in as many places as you possibly can, you're casting this huge wide net where somebody's going to find you based on the fact that they want to create that thing. Now, if I need a new shovel, sure, I need a new shovel. I want my SEO to be first. But I don't think
it's a wire cutter or wherever. And
I need a new wire cutter. Absolutely. It's going to be one of those things where you type in wire cutter and then you're going to look at wire cutters that come up first. Absolutely. But this is a little different. It's a little different industry. Yeah.
Well, I think in our industry is probably the creatives in our industry are the content authors and the marketers that we could appeal to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but by the same token, you were saying it was parallel to you. I've seen your efforts over the years to de-emphasize yourself a little bit and try to, have a project manager and those types of things. But ultimately, you're the guy with the vision. And so you have to figure out how to translate that either to another person or how to more efficiently be that person for you.
I thought I'd start a podcast.
It's working, I think. But
I'm trying to listen. I'm going to get more of me out there. My goal of 2024 is to be everywhere.
Well, and that's the thing. Part of it is the vision you have. Now, you have a couple of people that I've seen that same ability to look at the project as here's the best solution for what you're trying to do. Michael, in particular, very good at that. There are things that we threw at him in terms of this is what we're trying to accomplish, and he came back with ideas we hadn't thought about. That they were like, hey, this is what I think might be a better approach. Like, holy crap, that's a great way of doing it. I've still told there, sometimes people internally have gotten confused by the way the products go in there. And I keep going, no, you don't understand. It's really smart because I only have to describe the product once in 9 different languages. Now all I have to do is create that purchasable item, attach the price to it, and all the product information just comes from that. And that was a brilliant solution that, we probably wouldn't have thought of, but it saves a tremendous amount of time. But it's funny because it's, when like new people come on or you're, explaining why you did things the way you did, there's, I think sometimes there's a perception that, websites, because you program them, is about engineering. And it partly is, but that the back end, utilization is, there's a creativity to it that needs to be there, that makes things a little bit more functional for, like you said, content creators and marketers. I think sometimes, this, we're not just typing HTML anymore. Things have gotten very sophisticated, and you need to be thinking about how it's not just the presentation in the front end, it's the usability on the back end for creators and marketers to be able to express themselves.
Yeah.
And you guys do that really well. That's one of the things you guys do extremely well. Is it's not just, I'm not just building a site where somebody clicks a button and gives me $10. You're creating, outward stuff. That's great. But the way you get that done is by facilitating those creators and marketers with, the tools that allow them to express themselves.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like kind of coding. There's a lot of off the shelf kind of things, and there's like, they have things pre-built and you have to use their way and, shoehorn to that. And, there might be a market. I could probably make the company a lot bigger and maybe personally make more money if I did all that stuff. But like, that's not exciting to me. Like, I like that strategy. Exactly what you're talking about, of like working through to help solve the problems for the marketing team to be able to do what it needs to do and come up with those solutions.
Well, efficiently. I mean, you guys, it's funny because you probably don't see it, but I'll give you an example. So I have a buddy, we have a band, a buddy of mine and I did, theater together when we were kids and stuff. And so the last, 8 years, I think of it. So we've had a band that's been really fun. It's kind of that creative outlet thing. We play at some local clubs. We open up for all the old 70s bands. We've opened up for like Air Supply and the Association and what's that? Beatlemania, not Beatlemania. I can't remember their name, but we'd have a lot of fun with that. But he really wanted to have a website, and he knows I do this, and just didn't ask me. And he hired this little company here in LA, and in 2 seconds, it was driving me crazy what they were doing. There was, they didn't make it so that what they did was, they made it so that it would be really hard for you to do anything yourself, that you would have to constantly be paying them to do things. Like I said to him, I go, look, you don't want them having to enter every time we have a gig. When we add graphic, like dates and times and links to where you buy tickets and all that kind of stuff, they're building it in such a way that you're going to have to contact them every time you have a gig. And so he got me involved. But then so you had the graphic that you're going to put up for the club that you're playing at or who you're opening for. And it's in 3 different places. And it was 3 different sizes, 3 different 3 different configurations. And I'm like, dude, I should be able to put the image in once. And then it should pull that image into all these different places. And it wasn't even that their programmers that they were hiring were trying to make it hard so that you had to pay them on a regular basis. They didn't even think about it. They didn't even think that it would be smart to have a 19 by 20 by 1080 image that then shrunk down to 640 by 480 based on, that just keeping the same ratio, but then having it ready for different parts of the website. It didn't even occur to them. And I mean, just something simple like that. You're going, so now I have to give you like 6 different images for different places.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that stuff happens all the time. And I think people don't, that's a very simple example of things that you guys do to make things so much better. And there's so many other things, but that's a very simple illustration of how other agencies or people that are building sites work. They don't think ahead on how the workflow can be efficient and, put the power in the hands of the people who are trying to express themselves on that website.
And all those little things, they're like speed bumps for the marketer, right? When we're trying to do something on the back end of a site and we have all those little speed bumps, it does add up.
It does. And I was going through it, and then I went, and then I realized that they had built it in such a way that, asking for some of these things, it was going to be like, they're basically having to, re-architecture parts of it because there was no thought put into it. And, they were basically making it look a certain way, but not making it efficient to maintain at all. And I saw him last weekend, and I said, that's getting to be a real pain in the butt. And, because he wants me to be entering the content and things like that. And he had kind of avoided. He said, well, I really, really like the look of it. I don't want you to change the look of it. I go, I can change the look of it. I go, I'm going to hire somebody, just redo it. And I can have it look exactly the same, but not be, I mean, he's not technical at all, but I said, do you realize I could actually make it that you can enter stuff if you want to? Because he doesn't understand it well enough to be able to enter anything, and they used WordPress, of course. And he obviously doesn't know what to do on the back end of a WordPress site. So it's just very confusing. I said, I can create it so that you don't even have to ask me. You could just upload stuff if you want to. And he went, I could? Yeah, I could. You could actually make a back end that just did, is basically upload image here, put in title here, put in link to ticket here, call it a day,
Amazing.
Yeah. But they're people in the business world don't realize that you could make their lives easier. They don't realize that. I think sometimes it's seen kind of, it's magical. It's technology is so tough and magical. They don't realize that something could be built that would service them better. And they wouldn't have to constantly be going, I need 10 hours of your time to fix this thing that, oh my God, that took them like 5 minutes to fix. Yeah.
Well, so Paul, for you, what's like, what happens next? Like, so at Maxon, like, what's the thing, or what's going on after we're done talking? What are you doing?
In January, well, I'm still wrapping up. It's been 25 years, so there's a lot of unraveling to do. So, but I'll be, I'm pretty close. In January, I'll probably start putting feelers out in terms of, I definitely want to stay in the industry. I love the industry. People know me in the industry. Hopefully I can parlay that into another job.
So for people who are hearing this, you don't know, like,
they don't know. It's true. Probably people don't know. I will be leaving Maxon in 2024. And hopefully getting back to all the things that we talked about, back to the roots of building those relationships, making people successful, with something that,
like all the stuff
it still works. It still works. You know what? You add those data-driven tools to what you're doing with that. You make it so that you now use that tool to make those people more successful. I mean, the goal should never be a number. The goal should always be the success of individuals. So yeah, that's kind of what, people have been asking me, well, what do you want to do? And I kept trying to think of, it's a tangible thing, like, I want to stay director of marketing, or I want to run a company, or no, what I want to do is do what made me really happy was to facilitate artists, inspire people to create cool stuff, promote the hell out of them, make them successful, and, be able to provide either a service or a tool that helps them get there. And that's what I'm kind of hoping I'll find in 2024. I suspect that'll take me a little time, but it probably take time for people to know that I'm out there too. I haven't really put it out that I'm.
Well, we've put it out there now.
Yet. Now we did. Where are you putting this out?
Well, I mean, we're just starting to get our market reach out, but I mean, who knows? You never know where this is going to show up. So for all of our new fans, welcome to the podcast. No, it's I mean, we put up an article, right? I think we have 2 articles about the work that we've done with you, and so Elle, y'all talked and kind of talked about the stuff that has been done there. But I'll say this even now, just having this opportunity. I know Paul, you and I will continue talking and stuff, but
absolutely,
I mean, just being able to work with you and everything you've brought to the table, and I think just also just how you care for people. I think you can hear it in your marketing efforts too, of like how you like to market. You care for people, you want to develop them. I mean, you want to help them and have them be successful. That even in the collaboration that we've had together, that I've felt that, there's things that can happen with client, service agency relationships where things can get heated or over that. But like, I felt like we've never really had that. We've had just a very cordial and respectful thing where we've been able to do very collaborative, been able to do a lot of successful things, and you've given us an opportunity to kind of flex our muscles a bit and try to solve some of the problems that you needed to solve at Maxon. And so it's been fun, because what it's allowed me to do is kind of what you're talking about, is to also hire some people that I've just gotten to know on my team, and just being able to kind of that same idea, like you've done for people who use Cinema 4D and other products, like you've kind of done for us as well, in the way of like, hiring us to like help build what you needed at Maxon. We had to beef up our staffing a little bit, for a while. I remember we had the conversation of like, you're like, well, I could throw more at you, but I don't know if you have more people. And I was like, oh, you need more people? Like, more people. Like, but all on the side note of like, I've been able to meet some wonderful people because we've been working towards, solving problems for you all. And that too. So it's all the things that you are bringing into the world through your work it just has this ripple effect of positivity. And so
thank you.
Me kind of saying,
thank you. Yeah. Well, we've accomplished a lot together in that, anybody who's looking for, to raise their game when they're out there and to be able to provide that extra level of service or product to customers, they should be talking to you guys.
There we go. That's all we wanted you from, Paul, just that line. So we're going to edit everything else out.
All right. Foster.
It's so inspiring to hear how you built up this company and your focus.
It's inspiring now. What's funny is it's inspiring now, but at the time it was just putting your nose to the grindstone. And, luckily it went the right direction because, I mean, I look back and I'm very proud of what we accomplished with MaxonUSA. But it was, like I said, we didn't go, okay, we're going to be community oriented. That term just came out of everything that happened. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking and letting me blather on.
Thanks for being on the show, Paul.
Fascinating blather. All fascinating.
Thank you.